Alright guys, in this video I want to go over some progression methods that you should use in your training protocols if you want to get bigger, stronger, all that good stuff, because this is something that I really have to explain to my clients a lot, especially if they are newer to training, about exactly how progression works in the gym. And there are basically going to be 3 different types of progression models that are used in the gym that it's important to understand. So those are going to be single progression, double progression, and a triple progression. So I'm just going to go over each one of those very, as briefly as I possibly can, make it as simple as possible to understand. So single progression is when you basically find a fixed repetition count. So say that's, sets of 5. And then you're going to do a certain amount of weight at a certain intensity, and basically going to increase weight based off of the RPE target. So for example, if you're doing a set of 3 and you are going from RPE 6 to RPE 7 from like a week 1 or week 2 of a training block, if you are training for strength, that is going to facilitate an increase in loading, and that is going to be a way to have progression. You're basically only manipulating one variable, which is going to be load on the bar with single progression. You can also use this, say, you want to stay at a certain weight until the RPE drops down. So maybe you're doing 300 pounds, 4 sets of 5 at RPE 7. And then next session you do 300 for sets of 5, and that was RPE 6. Next training session you would want to increase the weight, say 5 pounds. Usually going to want to do relatively small increments, and this 2 to 3% if you're doing something like this, but it's going to depend on the RPE target, how that changes throughout the training block. For example, like lots of modern day powerlifting programs do an ascending RPE model where they do, like, say you have a 4-week block, you'll start week 1 at RPE 6, week 2 at RPE 7, week 3 at RPE 8, and week 4 at RPE 9, for example. There are also some other progression methods that are going to just have singles at RPE 8, for example. That's what, for example, reactive training systems made very popular. So that's just some examples. Again, single progression, you're only manipulating load on the bar. Sets and reps stay the exact same. This is something that I'm usually going to use on machine movements that have very small weight increments, or maybe they're plate loaded machines where you can make very small increases in load. Say 5 pounds on the bar being added, also on barbell based movements. Usually not going to be doing this with dumbbell or machine based movements that have large weight differences between the dumbbells, that basically as far as percent increase. Because for example, going from 25 pounds to 30 pounds on a dumbbell movement is like a 20+% increase in loading. So that's a pretty big amount. Now going into the next progression method is going to be double progression, and this is where we're going to be manipulating the load and the reps achieved during a set. So basically you're going to set a rep range, usually with about a 3 to 5 rep spread. So say that's, for example, you're doing sets of 10 to 15 or sets of 12 to 15. There might be some times when you have a larger spread. Maybe it's 6 to 15, for example. If you're doing something like, a lateral raise, where if you do increase the weight when you go to 15 pounds, and you just find that it's hard for you to hit the low end of the rep target, even after, say during 10 to 15, it's hard for you to even get 3 sets of 10, going from 25s to 30s, because that's just how things work for you. That's why you might use maybe a larger spread, and that's largely going to just depend on the person. But basically, you're going to want to add weight. Weight will be added as soon as the top end of the rep count is achieved for all sets. So for example, on 3 sets of 10 to 15, say you're doing dumbbell curls with 25 pounds, you would want to stick with that 25 pounds until you get all 3 sets with 15 reps. Once you can do that, then you would go up to the next weight increment, say the 35 pound dumbbells, and repeat that process, going to a certain relative intensity that's prescribed, say RPE 8. and then keep progressing. Again, those reps to the top end of the rep range until you hit the top end, and then rinse and repeat. This is going to be best used for dumbbells and cable movements that have like a large differences between the loads, like in the jumps that you're using in between load as far as percentage increase. Like I said, on a barbell movement, if you're doing like 300 pounds, if you add like, you can literally add like around like 1-2%. Say you're doing 300 pounds, going from 300 to 305 is like 1.5%. Whereas if you're going from 25 pounds to 30 pounds, that is a 20% increase in weight. That's a really big increase, and that's when this would be most used. And so this is, probably the most common way of programming. Most bodybuilding programs giving a rep range and working within that rep range until you hit the top end, and then rinsing and repeating. Now the last one is going to be triple progression, which is going to be where you are manipulating the sets, the reps, and the load on the bar. This is something that I really don't use that often. Maybe there's, I will use this, for example, for fatigue management periods like deloads or intro weeks or pivot weeks, where you might need to, reduce down the volume via sets. And that's built into your progression model where, say, every 4 weeks you have one less set per exercise, and then you go and, you go back to your regular volume for accumulation. Or, for example, somebody who's in a rehab phase who is, where you have to drop down the stress on their tissues to allow them to recover, but I want to slowly increase that over time as their symptoms are allowing them to, until you get back to a volume that we know that they can handle and adapt to consistently. So again, you're going to start with a fixed weight number of sets and reps, and then you're going to add sets and reps in some pattern to some upper limit. So say you're doing like one set of 10 to 15 with 30 pounds, you would want to do some sort of combination of increasing like the load, the sets, the reps, until like some target. So usually, say you're starting with one set, you want to go to 3 sets. You would basically increase that within the tolerance of the person, their progress, how they're responding, etc. Until you hit all sets. Like say you're doing 3 sets of 10 to 15, and you hit all 3 sets. At the end of the block, you're from going from one set of 10 to 15, you go and until you hit 3 sets of 10 to 15. Then you do the same thing and go back up again. This is, again, like, I don't really recommend this. It's kind of complicated and needlessly complicated. With my clients, I usually tend to find a volume that they can consistently recover from and adapt to, and just stay within there and just let them ride it out and let their own genetics and individual rates of adaptation dictate how fast that we actually add load to the bar and whatnot. So, and just the genetic limit is a genetic limit, regardless if it takes you, 5 versus 8 years to get there. I'd much rather have somebody focus on long-term progress and sustainability versus trying to do the most amount of volume and get hurt or burnt out or etc. So again, I really only use this in rehab phases, or if we're doing like a deload, where say someone's typical volume is like 3 sets of 10 to 15, and then we cut back, 1 set. And then you lower down the weight too. And maybe you're doing only 2 sets of 10, even though they got 3 sets of 15 with 30 pounds, we go back down to 20 pounds for 2 sets of 10 as a deload. So I'll put some slides on the screen of like just a summary of all these progression methods, but hopefully this has made sense. Learning how to really progress in the gym is important. So if you guys have any questions about what I said, ask down in the comments below. If you guys are interested in coaching, also links are down in the description below. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.